They need to provide answers about many things. About the shooting of Myiramar Martinez, a United States citizen, 30 years old, shot 5 times by a Border Patrol officer in Chicago, last name Exum. She is now suing Border Patrol because Pam Bondi won't investigate. Body cam footage shows the Border Patrol officer, I believe his name is Charles Exum. Body cam footage now shows him ramming into her car, then jumping out of his van shouting, "Do something, bitch," and then firing 5 shots at her. Last time I heard, he's still on duty. Her lawsuit, her testimony before charges against her were dropped. Yes, she was arrested after surviving the gunshots. She was called a domestic terrorist by Tricia McLaughlin, the spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. Tricia McLaughlin said that Martinez aimed an assault weapon at the Border Patrol officer and then rammed her car into his, and he fired 5 shots in self-defense. But evidence presented at her hearing reveals, no, it was the Border Patrol officer who rammed into her. They claim she pointed an assault weapon at the Border Patrol officer. Video evidence proves there was no assault weapon being pointed at the officer. She did have a gun in her glove compartment, never took it out, never pointed it at the Border Patrol officer. He never saw the gun. Do something, bitch, 5 shots. Do something, bitch, 5 shots. Reminds me of Jonathan Ross, who, after killing Renee Good, allegedly said, "effing bitch." The New York Times reporting that Gregory Bovino, the Border Patrol commander who ran Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, where Miss Martinez was shot, according to the New York Times, Gregory Bovino congratulated the Border Patrol officer for shooting the woman 5 times. I've talked about this. Immediately after shooting her, Exum, the Border Patrol officer, texted his fellow Border Patrol officers, 5 shots, 7 holes. I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your books, boys. And during the hearing, he said, yes, I texted that. And they said, why? He said, because I teach firearms, shooting, and I'm proud of my marksmanship. That's what he said. And then he said, it is what it is. Last time I checked, he's still on duty. And we have since learned that Gregory Bovino texted to him after the shooting, quote, "In light of your excellent service in Chicago, you have much yet left to do." And Bovino, who was running Midway Blitz, offered to extend Exum's retirement beyond the standard age of 57, praising his performance for shooting this woman and urging him to delay his retirement. There's still so much for you to do. See, we like the idea of law and order until we find out who we have to trust to keep us in line. And then there's the issue of the for-profit ICE detention centers. ICE is 20 years old. 2025 was the deadliest year inside ICE detention centers in the 2 decades that ICE has been around. More than 30 detainees died last year. There have been more than 4 deaths so far in 2026. There are reports of 100 people being forced to share 1 toilet, pregnant women denied medical care, hundreds and hundreds of children held in these detention centers. The New York Times has a big expose this morning about this. There are more children right now being held in detention centers, for-profit ICE detention centers, than ever before. They're being forced to eat rotting food. They can't see a nurse or a doctor. They go 14 hours a day without water, no soap, no showers, forced to wear the same clothes for weeks. But it's profitable. It's profitable. The good news is Geo Group, Core Civic, doing very well. It's profitable. So Democrats, to their credit, have been very clear on what they want in order to fund ICE. They want judicial warrants, not administrative warrants to kick down doors and drag people out of cars. Masks off, body cameras on, badges clearly visible with the federal agent's ID displayed. Keep border agents and ICE agents away from schools, polling places, churches, houses of worship, and hospitals. Democrats stop telling federal agents they have something called absolute immunity. There is no such thing as absolute immunity. It doesn't exist. They have qualified immunity. What these agents do have with Pam Bondi as Attorney General is a Justice Department that won't prosecute them. Stephen Miller declared, he said, by law, you have absolute immunity. What he means is you can do anything you want, and this Justice Department will not prosecute you. And this is why Democrats are demanding, in order to fund the Department of Homeland Security, a rider must be injected into the funding bill where state and local prosecutors have jurisdiction over the prosecution and investigation into killings of U.S. citizens or immigrants done by Department of Homeland Security agents, because Pam Bondi will not prosecute. Here is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on Thursday talking about the Department of Homeland Security bill that was before the Senate for a vote later that day. Now, this bill, to refresh your memory, passed the House the week before, despite Hakeem Jeffries urging Democrats in the House not to vote for it. 7 Democrats in purple districts voted for the funding bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Had those 7 Democrats held the line and voted against it, the bill would have gone down to defeat. Mike Johnson could only spare 1 vote. Here is Hakeem Jeffries, who, if Democrats win in November, will become the first Black Speaker of the House. And yes, that matters.
Get ICE under control. It's a rogue agency right now, using taxpayer dollars to do harm to the American people. That's unacceptable.
More of Hakeem Jeffries.
Funding for ICE and the Department of Homeland Security should not move forward in the absence of dramatic changes that are bold, meaningful, and transformational. Period. Full stop.
More.
That's the House Democratic Caucus position, and that's the Senate Democratic Caucus position. And absent dramatic changes being built into the law, it's my expectation that any legislation that falls short of that will fail today in the United States Senate.
Later that day, they were going to vote on the funding bill.
I'm in the process of reviewing the most recent so-called offer from the White House. We'll take a look at it, but my preliminary assessment of it is that it falls short of the type of dramatic changes necessary in order to change ICE's out-of-control behavior and deliver immigration enforcement that actually focuses on violent felons who are here illegally, which is what the president promised to do, and he lied.
More.
We need to make sure that if ICE agents or DHS agents violate the law or are engaging in violent behavior that brings harm to everyday Americans, they are held accountable independently through state and local investigations and, if merited, criminal prosecution. There's no indication that the White House is prepared to walk away from its outrageous position that federal agents who violate the law under the banner of ICE are able to benefit from so-called absolute immunity. That's not America, where no one is above the law. And that administration position is incentivizing ICE agents to violently brutalize people in American communities with impunity, because the administration has told them they don't have to worry about ever being held accountable.
That was early Thursday morning before the Senate voted on the funding bill for Homeland Security. Later that day, the bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security, which had passed in the House, died in the Senate. They needed 60 votes in the Senate to beat the filibuster. It passed 52 to 47, with just Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman voting for it. This means right now the Department of Homeland Security is in a partial shutdown. What happens? Well, Congress is taking a break. You've just shut down the Department of Homeland Security, Congress. What are you going to do? We're going to take a week off. The Senate and the House is in recess all of next week. Monday is President's Day, so members of Congress aren't expected to come back to Washington until next Friday. Supposedly, that means they really don't reconvene until a week from this Monday. But all of next week, we will be watching the Senate and House leadership negotiating or trying to negotiate some sort of deal. I don't know. I think it's possible the Department of Homeland Security will be in partial shutdown for a while. I think both sides want to die on this hill politically. What it means, we're going to see massive delays at airports, especially especially in blue states, blue cities, because the Department of Homeland Security is run by Kristi Noem, who answers to Donald Trump, and he will punish blue districts. He will frustrate voters in blue districts, trying to convince them it's the Democrats who caused the shutdown. We're going to see supply chain disruptions, which will give corporate America another excuse to raise prices. They're going to say, hey, supply chain, it's the shutdown. It's not our fault. We have to raise prices. No, you don't. That means Trump can blame Democrats for inflation. Now, inflation is destroying the Republican Party's chances of winning possibly even the Senate in November. 90% of Americans in a recent poll say inflation, affordability is a crisis. And we're now seeing some polls where American voters are saying Joe Biden was stronger on the economy than Donald Trump. Now you figured that out, you effing morons. You effing morons. You didn't know that Joe Biden left Donald Trump with the greatest economy in American history. Again, the economy only works for half of Americans. But by the yardsticks we use to measure the economy, Joe Biden delivered the best economy in American history. And Donald Trump declared we're in an economic emergency, tariffs. I'm declaring an emergency, and now I'm going to control the tariffs. By the way, the Supreme Court may come down with a ruling on the tariffs next week, most probably either next week or in 2 weeks. We'll see. So remember, there's one big, beautiful bill which was signed into law on July 4th of last year. It was a supplemental. I've explained to you what supplementals are. That means they gave Homeland Security close to $200 billion over the next 4 years. In addition to what Homeland Security gets each year, one big, beautiful bill gave them an additional $200 billion over the next 4 years. That's kind of a slush fund. The funding bill right now that's up for debate for the Department of Homeland Security is somewhere in the neighborhood of $65 billion. So it's why they call this $200 billion for the Department of Homeland Security from one big, beautiful bill, Trump's slush fund, because he can draw from that to keep immigration enforcement going. Now, if it were up to me, I would refuse to pass the Department of Homeland Security funding bill. I would force the White House to spend the $200 billion from one big, beautiful bill given to Department of Homeland Security. If you want to fund Homeland Security, take it out of the $200 billion you gave to pretty much ICE, $40-70 billion to create this network of for-profit jails and hire more ICE agents that we don't need. That's what I would do. But what do I know? Probably a lot. Midterms are in November. Democrats are being told polling shows this is the hill to die on. ICE, Border Patrol. They're being told this is a winning position, that Americans don't like what's going on in Minnesota. And Donald Trump, I suspect, is okay with all of this because he knows how stupid voters are. So, Donald Trump is a liar. He lied about FEMA in 2024 when the hurricane hit, just lied and said they weren't providing to people in Georgia. And he will lie again. If, God forbid, something bad happens, he will blame FEMA's piss-poor response on the shutdown, even though FEMA remains fully funded. But Americans don't know that. Again, he can use that slush fund inside one big, beautiful bill to make sure red districts are taken care of and blue districts are punished.